Okay, guys. Going live again because I wanted to get something out. I really didn't have time to shoot a video and process it, all that other stuff. Um, but it's been 23 years since the attack on the United States, 9/11, when the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and I guess a thwarted attempt to attack the White House all transpired. 22 years, a long time. Uh, I kind of remember that I don't I do remember that day um, quite clearly, even after all these years. And generally on the anniversary, I'd like to take a moment for us to remember all the people that lost their lives in that tragedy. And also, I believe it was almost 20 years of ongoing war against terrorism and the loss of life of our servicemen uh, for a long time. 20 years is a long war. Okay. So, what happened that day? I remember what happened. I was laid off. 2021, there was a whole economic shift back then. Manufacturing was started its decline in the area I lived. And by the way, I did live in upstate New York at the time. So this attack happened in my state. Um, so I was laid off at the time. So I was staying at home, going to work around the house, set my wife off to work, got myself a cup of coffee, and the phone starts ringing. And yeah, going back in time back then, it was a landline. I had a phone on the wall uh, with a cord that was 10 feet long or whatever. So I go in the kitchen, grab the phone. It's my buddy. And he goes, hey, man, I had the news on. And I think there's some kind of accident down in New York City. It looks like a plane crashed into one of the Twin Towers. Now, that was a symbol, if you ever watched on cable, the New York channels, you always had the Twin Towers and the lights. So it was, excuse me. Yeah, allergies. But, that was an icon. You always seen on the TV, they show the New York skyline, and that was very predominant down there. So I turn the TV on, I'm looking, I go, yeah, man, it's pretty weird. Uh, two towers for movies. All right, so we're watching, and it was at that time I'm drinking my coffee, and that's when the second one that's about 10 minutes into the conversation is when the second tower got hit. Okay, and I told him at that point, I said, I don't think this is a accident. I said, I think we're at war. Okay, this is a deliberate attack. So there was a ton of confusion, and also at the time I lived in upstate New York, in Rome, New York, which at the time I don't know if they closed the base. I think they did close the base. Uh, but it was a SAC command, Strategic Air Command. They flew B-52s out of there all my life from that base. Um, but the network they set up, that's tied in with Cheyenne Mountain, the air control network, the military one, still is there. There's still part of that communication radar system. So of course there was an alarm there. Uh, I guess, and they set a record. They made every aircraft, civilian aircraft, airliner, they got them all out of the air and on the ground in record time was something that never happened before. So they get all the planes down. And as with anything, confusion, mayhem. I guess they had fighter jets up in the air. And as the day progressed, it was about, I don't know, 10 or 11. I can't remember exactly, but I was watching that. I got off the phone with my friend. I said, I got to run down to the store, grab some chewing tobacco or something, and come back to the house. So I get in the vehicle, drive out to the main road. I'm headed down to the convenience store, and they had a thing on the radio that the Pentagon was hit. So, I went in there, and of course, it's like Joe said here, every channel, the regular programming stopped. It was a national crisis. And I don't think anything has happened like this before since Pearl Harbor. And Pearl Harbor, they really didn't know about it, and it came on the radio the day after, or something. I forget what it was, because it was a Sunday morning. And then by the time it was broadcast on the radio, it may have been Sunday evening by the time they got the message there. But nothing like that has happened since the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So there was a lot of confusion. I went into the convenience store, customers, the employees are all running around in a panic, and they had a little TV set on, and they were looking at the Twin Towers. And I said, look, I just come down on the radio. They said that the Pentagon got hit. So again, panic. My wife did call me from work eventually and talk to me. And I guess they stayed, I don't know if they left school early that day or not, but she got home and it was really a sad day, very frightening day. And that's how I kind of remember it, and I like to say that, I'm making this impromptu video to remember the people, that died there. That was a mess, and that went on for a very long time. The recovery, and it devastated New York City, and for years they want to, people they still make TV shows about people that just went missing that day and were never found. But we kind of remember that, and then it sparked this war on terrorism. It was immediate, and the whole country was behind it, just like in World War II. And so whether anybody was there or not, or whatever was going on, the military jumped right in, and we started what I guess is referred to as the war on terrorism, which I think lasted 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. And, Iraq, Afghanistan, God knows where else we all went, and it just dragged on forever. And there were several people I know that lost their children. By now I'm a veteran, kind of was getting too old for military service, being in my 30s, I guess. But when I still hung out in a veterans post, there was a few guys that lost their sons, and that during that period, a lot of families lost service members then. And we got to look at it to where after 22 years, what's happened to this country? That's the one thing I always ponder about. And I remember it at the time. I wasn't called back up, and I didn't go back in. I was married at the time. If I wasn't married, I may have tried to go back in service. I don't know. I can't remember how close I was. It used to be the cutoff age was 35 or something. They wouldn't, they considered you too old for a start. I don't know if they take you back. I think they gave you a couple years, so it'd be like 36 or 37. I probably could have done it, but I can't quite remember. But yeah, so it launched this war on terrorism, and whatever came of it, a lot of money was spent, a lot of things were done. We had a military presence in the Middle East for the whole time, billions of dollars spent, and really, I don't know what they accomplished from any of us. Okay, eventually, I think it was 2012, I was actually at a military reunion in San Diego that year, and we flew down there, and a bunch of us that were veterans, from the ship being commissioned, they allowed us. Somebody wrote a letter to the captain, and he allowed us to come on Sunday afternoon to visit the ship because it was imported. So we went down to a hotel down there, had a little banquet and conference, and then they sent vans over and gathered us all up and took us to the ship, which is nice to get back on the base again, San Diego. But they almost didn't let us go, and we didn't really know why. And they hemmed and hawed, and then they let us on, and we went in there, and there was a difference back then. Okay, I remember they used to park the ship with the bow inland, not facing out. The ship was parked with the bow facing out to like take right off from the pier and head straight out into the harbor. And there was it looked like a submarine net or something was there. There was some kind of barricade up in front of the piers at a distance. And we were allowed to just wander around the ship, Sunday afternoon. All the guys on active duty were just laying back and that. And I was walking around the ship with my wife, and it was kind of strange because they were going to go out on a drug interdiction mission, and the deck mounts, I guess they put 20 mils on there, the old Oerlikons. We put 50s. I remember when we welded pads, the ship wasn't laid out to have 50 cal mounts. They had two 30 cals on the bridge wing. That was it. And then, the rest of the armament. Well, it ended up after a certain point in time, especially when we were doing escort duty in Persian Gulf, they mounted 250s amidship, and out back aft, they put 250 gun mounts on the flight deck somewhere. I remember getting in an airplane. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. So the ship changed, and we went up on the top level there where radar and stuff, the weapons radar, and I was looking, and I noticed they did add some other things over the years. Some launchers were there that weren't there before. And I'm looking, and canvas covers. They had two 30 caliber machine guns locked in to two positions up on the front or the top, the 03 level, facing out into the harbor. And I was looking, and I'm pulling the canvas up. The guns were there. And when I started pulling the canvas cover up and looking at it to make sure there was a machine gun there, some guys on the other ship were looking, so I just put it back down again had a base alert. But they're sitting there with guns mounted, which, we never had that before. So we get back to the hotel, and then everybody goes, "Did you hear Bin Laden, Bin Laden?" I guess that was the weekend when they got Bin Laden, and supposedly that ended the 9/11 saga. His captured death, whatever, they said they killed him. But that was beginning, I guess, and then the end there in 2012 and 9/11. Of course, the war on terrorism went on for quite a long while afterwards. There in Afghanistan. And then when it all came to said and done, our current president yanked us all out of there, and they pulled everyone out. And the same people we ran out 20 years before, they negotiated with them and put them in charge. Yeah, kind of a sad thing to happen. Uh, Remembering what started it all 22 years ago, and what the American public and the world went through with all this nonsense. And yeah, ever since that day, like I'm getting here in the comments from my friend Joe, uh, a lot of things changed, okay, in the way we live in our everyday lives. And unfortunately, if you stay tuned to the channel, and that you're going to see that there are a lot more things going on now, okay, that are going to, you know, change our lives once more. You know, hopefully, or I doubt very much there'll be another attack on our country like that, but I believe the attack is coming from within. And we'll see how all of these events turn out the next year. And it's starting now. Any of you who watch the news know it's it's starting. Okay, and I guess this next year is going to be one uh, for the record books, and we're all going to see how it comes out once again. All right. Okay, so I just wanted to, on the 22nd anniversary, do my piece, say something to get out there so people don't forget this historic event, this tragic event. We should never forget and learn from our past is basically the message I'm trying to send out. So, Joe, thanks for all your comments and all the other folks, not many that came in, but this, I'm just trying to make this real quick to get some content out and talk about this topic. And all I can say is stay tuned, guys, and thanks for watching.